Hello everyone, thank you for coming to my presentation on the PC3, which is a sleeper PC built inside of a PS3 FAT. So the goal of this project, as I just explained, was to use the shell of a non-backwards compatible PlayStation 3 and build a custom gaming computer inside of it, while preserving most of the original appearance. This is commonly called a sleeper PC. The main thing is that this computer should be unrecognizable at a glance and retain crucial functionality such as using the original capacitive power button, retaining Blu-ray playback capabilities, more on that later, and allowing for convenient USB access via the front ports. So the parts for this computer, they're mainly chosen due to familiarity with the components. It's probably not the best spec that you could have found, but it was relatively affordable for the time that we built this, and it is capable of reaching our goal of 4K 60 FPS in older titles, and then in newer stuff 1440p and 1080p. The main thing is a stable and fluid 60 FPS. Primary components were a Ryzen 5 3600 with a Noctua, a small profile Noctua cooler, a Gigabyte Mini ITX motherboard, some 16 gigabytes DDR4 3200. You can definitely get faster RAM nowadays, but we just had that lying around, so why not save a buck? Just a generic Team Group 1TB NVMe SSD, and a ASUS low profile RTX 4060 8GB, and then a Dell 330 watt AC power brick, which is like a big fat laptop charger. Some extra components we used were an HDPlex Hi-Fi 500 watt AC to ATX adapter, and then a generic PCI riser cable. It may not be linked up anymore. We went through a couple. To explain the power situation, basically we use a very large 330 watt laptop power brick, and we plug it into this HDPlex Hi-Fi. It's like a breakout board. So you plug in a laptop charger, and it gives you all the plugs you need for a normal computer. Starting in February, we found a broken, beat up, nasty old PS3 FAT, and it was disassembled and thoroughly cleaned. After cleaning, we did some rough test fitting to kind of figure out what parts needed to be removed. We cried a bunch from February till May. The PC3 sat on the floor as all project members cried while they prepared for exams and worked fast food jobs. Back in May, once we finished up the semester, we started on the I/O plate, and the first thing we did, we cut holes in it so it could fit the power plug for our power supply, and then it fits the I/O plate for the motherboard, and it kind of sort of fits the I/O for the GPU. That's probably the ugliest cut that we had there. Continuing on with physical modifications, we filed out the original USB ports to align with a USB 3.0 hub that we had, and then we cut a hole into the bottom of the PS3 and lined it with a plastic mesh. That way the GPU is able to really exhaust hot air. Not mentioned in this for some reason is we also went through and just on the PS3 took some plastic snips and just snipped out all of the screw posts and little bits that we didn't need anymore. In total, one screw post remains of the original thing, and that screw is holding on for dear life. The next part of the build involves some 3D printing, the HDPlex adapter. So let me see if I can show you in this previous picture. Over here on the right, we have this HDPlex adapter. And so, or HDPlex breakout board, whatever you want to call it. That was held in place with a little U-shaped bracket with some nubs to hold our Blu-ray drive, which sits on a little 3D printed shelf that attaches to the top of the HDPlex adapter. The ribbon cable for the GPU was a hassle. We went through several potential ribbon cables, and if we had planned this out better, we probably could have avoided it. The first one was, it was fine, it was good enough, but it broke due to strain on the cable. The second one, we just ordered it and it was in the completely wrong direction. The third one was just a fucking stupid idea. And then the last idea, the last cable works. It's a little tight, but it's been great. And then moving on to the original power button. So we have a TP223 capacitive touch sensor, which is something you can order off Amazon for really cheap. The original plan was to run the capacitor through a transistor, which would then connect to the front USB ports and the front panel USBs to get some 5-volt power off of there. Fortunately, because we were using there's a little piece of metal inside the PS3, we were attaching the sensor to that, which is what the original sensor used this piece of metal, and we were trying to reuse that piece of metal. We think it just affected the capacitance of the metal too much, and the sensor was really sensitive. I mean, walking next to it, breathing on it could make it go off. Sometimes we would be trying to test the computer, and the sensor would just light up and turn off the computer. We did later find out that this was a broken sensor, and it's probably not as bad. We could have replaced the metal, but instead we turned to a much, much, much worse solution. which was calling my friend Kyle. So, do I talk about it? Okay. Basically, this little circuit diagram will show you what we did. So we run 5-volt power through the touch sensor from from an empty USB header. From the touch sensor's output, we run it through a small capacitor, which is grounded on both ends, and then a resistor. And then from that resistor, we go into the transistor or whatever it's called, and that goes to the power button. And basically, to sum up, this is really complicated. To sum up what this means, when we press the power button, the sensor, it will take the 5 volts, it will read a capacitance change in the metal, and it will send a signal through this middle pin here. That middle pin, well, it sends a 5 volts through that middle pin. That 5 volts will then go through the capacitor. While the capacitor is charging, it will allow electricity to flow, it'll allow current to flow, and that means that it will go through the capacitor, through the resistor, which is just bringing it down from 5 volts to something. I don't remember how big the resistor is. And then it will go to this transistor, which basically the way the transistor works is it has 3 pins, and you put your power button on the 2 like outside pins, I think. And then when you plug something into the middle and you send signal right to that middle pin, the middle sending signal to the middle pin allows current to flow from the 2 outsides. It's like opening a bridge or closing a bridge, more or less. The point is, when you touch it and the capacitor's charging, it will turn on the computer, but when the capacitor fills up, it will no longer allow current to go to travel through it, basically. And it fills up really, really fast. So basically, you touch it, it allows the signal to go through for like a millisecond, and then the capacitor fills up. And as long as you're holding it, the capacitor will not discharge. Essentially, we made a power button that you cannot long press. And then when you let go, eventually it'll drain through the ground, through these resistors to ground here. And then we disabled the power button in Windows, so it can literally turn on the computer, and that is nothing else. If you need to shut down the computer, you have to do it through software or unplug it. This is not a great solution. It's not even a particularly good solution, but it works, and it took us like a month of me going to his house. Some extra things that I didn't feel were warranting of a full slide. We zip tied some Noctua fans to the inner grates, 2 in the front and then 1 in the side to help exhaust some air. We added a green LED, which actually I did. I was so proud of myself. I added a green LED, and basically we just used the motherboard's power LED, and we wired it up with the resistor. To configure Windows, Cheese Turbulence has a really, really good video that covers the important quality of life features that you might want, including HDMI CEC, which is really cool. The feet were extended using some 3D printed extenders. The case, this was not my idea, this was my buddy's. I don't know if I talked about this. This is for my buddy. And basically he wanted a Pelican case because he goes back and forth to different places. He wanted this to be like kind of a portable computer. So we bought a Pelican case from Harbor Freight and cut some foam out inside to hold the PC3, the power brick, and a Steam controller, I think is what we settled on. A logo was also 3D printed for this. We actually designed this little piece ourselves. Somebody had completely 3D modeled this case and put it up on the internet, which was amazing. And so we were able to go in and design our own little faceplate. And it's pretty simple, but dude, we were so happy with that. And then moving on, just some demos to kind of tell you what it was about. The PC3, it works well. It maintains the sleeper appearance with somewhat reasonable temps. So here is a time lapse. It's intentionally crappy time lapse, I promise. And this is of an original version of the build. I still have some more stuff to talk about. This is actually a video where I realized that something is broken and I had to stop it halfway through. But this is kind of what it looks like on the inside. The next part is actually some gameplay that we have. This is from The Last of Us Part 2, because I was playing it on PC when this released. And yeah, so I don't know if you can see the frame view, but this is running at 1440p, like medium high settings, and it's getting 60 FPS. Like, it is a very good computer. We are still actually GPU bottlenecked if you look at it. The CPU's getting close, but we're still like, we could put a more powerful GPU and it has a little bit more leg room. This is also CPU every game, so it's a bad demo. But it runs Last of Us Part 2. It looks amazing. It plays great. This is meant to be used with a TV, and it's really good. I also loaded up some Spider-Man Remastered gameplay. Runs great. Spider-Man Remastered is like not the heaviest thing in the world, right? You can play on anything. But it's a really fun game, and how cool is it to play Spider-Man on a PS3, right? So the question comes down to, did we complete our goals? Well, the PC3 does utilize the original power button, and we still can use the front USB ports. So to anybody coming by, it would look like a stock PS3, which is the goal. Unfortunately, I kind of didn't talk about that Blu-ray drive at all. We just couldn't get it to work. We had a bunch of solutions. We had that 3D printed mount. We had The disk drive slot was removable, so you could put a DVD in there or a Blu-ray. We used a USB Blu-ray drive on the inside with some adapters. Unfortunately, the PLA just wasn't heat resistant enough. It gets hot in there. I don't have the capabilities to print in PLA safely. We didn't really want to. We'd already spent a bunch of money on the computer and the man hours. We didn't want to have to send this off to somebody to print in something like ABS. So, unfortunately, we had to cut the Blu ray drive, but it is technically possible. If anybody's interested in the files, let me know. I mean, it can be done. We just weren't able to implement it in our design within the constraints of our time and budget. The power button was obviously an issue, as I think the majority of this presentation has been talking about the incredibly jank way we got that power button to work. And there isn't a lot of internal space. It's better without the Blu-ray drive, but airflow still could be better. My buddy's been playing Clair Obscure Expedition 33, and he's like, it runs great. The next question is, would we do it again? I believe we would do it again, but not without more planning. It was a lot of fun, but there were a lot of minor inconveniences. It just took a lot of time. This was supposed to be a 2-3 week project, and it was a 2-month project. Again, that comes down to planning. If we had had a really solid plan when we started, it would have been one thing, but we were kind of figuring out as we go along. I am excited to begin on my next project. It's probably not going to be related to this. I want to do something a little different, but anything like this would just be so much fun. These are amazing projects. If you ever want to do a sleeper computer, just try it, man. Buy an old computer, buy a console, a broken console, right? If you want an easy one, get an original Xbox. If you can find one broken and you can like rehome the components, somebody might be able to fix it, but just the shell of one, right? Those are really easy to build a sleeper PC in it. I mean, I did it, and it allows you to fit a decently sized graphics card. I think mine has a 3600 and a RX 6650 XT, which is like fine. It's good enough for me, right? But they're so much fun. You get to learn so much about computer parts and design and engineering and stuff like that. And I believe, yeah, that's it for my presentation. So that was kind of a brief discussion on how we did it. It wasn't super in depth, but it is the general idea, right? Cry, cut some holes, test fit, test fit, test fit. It's gonna take time, especially if you haven't done this before. But this is, I think, let me pull up a picture here. I think that, if you looked at this and you didn't really know, you would think that this is, and there's some trim pieces missing here. They have been replaced. This little photo shoot was taken at some random point before it was finished. But I think that if you looked at this, you would think it was a normal PS3, and that's the coolest part about this is, when you're showing your room to somebody or you're showing them like your thing, and they're like, "Oh, that's cool, you have a PS3," and you get to be like, "No, it's a computer. It's a really cool project that I got to work on," right? So yeah, that's a PS3 sleeper PC. I think it's honestly one of the best ones I've seen. I don't mean to brag. I've seen some really cool ones, but I think this one is, for the amount of performance you're getting, for the visual aesthetic of it, this is probably the most sleeper PS3 that I've seen on the internet. So yeah, I'm really proud of it. If you have any questions, let me know. Right, I'll talk about it. I'll put the Reddit post where I posted my Xbox PC. It's not nearly as cool as this, but yeah, go try something.